Hi, this is Francis from Easel. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how you can adjust your 3D model in 3D for Easel Pro, and a little bit about the differences there. We do have a video on setting up a 3D file, but I wanted to get a little more in depth with it and talk about a couple of the different options for orientating your model and adjusting it. And so I'm just going to jump right in. Essentially, we're going to be focusing on when you upload a 3D file, on the right-hand side, there is a section that says model at the top, and then there's a couple of options: orientation, position, size, and rotate. You can also center to material. Ideally, when you upload something, it's going to be defaulted center to the material, but it might not be. You can click center to material, and that'll center directly on your material. That's probably the easiest one, and I can kind of demonstrate that really quick by adjusting the position slightly. If I click center to material, it's just going to raise it up and bring it back to that center. So I think the two kind of key or two most important things to know is the difference between position and size. Position is the location of your model in relation to your work zero point. So my work zero point is, if we generate our tool path, it's going to be the front left corner of my material, and we can see the carve starting from there. That is the basically where the position works out from. So if we look on the x-axis, it's about 0.6 of an inch, and that kind of confirmed right there, and then 0.86 of an inch up. And so essentially the position is showing from this 0 point to this purple circle what that dimension is. And so we can adjust our position knowing that information. So if I want it to be a little kind of tighter into the front left corner, I can do 0.4 by 0.4 of an inch, and that's going to bring it tighter into that corner. And so that's how you would adjust where your model sits in relation to your material. And this is really useful, or I think this is like important if you're trying to combine something like a 2D carve and a 3D carve on the same piece of material. Being able to know where that exactly where that kind of object is in relation to your work zero and positioning that is really important in this instance. The other instance where it might be really important is if you're doing something like a rectangle relief. You want to get your full model in the rectangle relief, but your Z is a little lower than your, let's say, your set depth. So in this instance, we can see the bottom of my model is not quite lined up with the gray rectangle that indicates my rectangle relief cut depth. This Z position allows me to adjust that up or down, and it should default to 0. But you can change that. So in this case, I'm going to do negative 0.1, and that's going to move my model down 1/10 of an inch. So you can do negative or positive in this instance. So I can do like 0.2, and that's going to raise it up. So that's how you adjust the model up and down in relation to the material. And that's just a little bit more about position. Size allows you to adjust the size of your model or the 3D model that you're carving. So it should default into a particular size, and you can adjust that to achieve different things. In this instance, my material is 0.5, but my model is 0.75 of an inch. And I want to make that my model size consistent with my material size. So instead of it being 0.75 of an inch on the Z dimension, I'm going to change it to 0.5 of an inch, and that's going to kind of condense my model down on the Z axis. I'm still getting all of that detail, and that's because I condensed it slightly, but it's allowed me to fit my model within the bounds of my material. And oftentimes, we'll see in technical sport, if I were to simulate this carve, as it is when I imported it at 0.75 of an inch. We can see that it's doing parts of the carve, but if we look at this finishing pass, it's not going to carve parts of the hull of the boat or the sails. And so to achieve that or to fix that, I either need to increase my material size or adjust my model size. And adjusting it down to 0.5 of an inch means it's within the bounds of my material, and I'm ready to carve it. The other one is the X and Y. Typically, especially with things like 3D models, I would recommend locking them together when you change a dimension because you want them to change proportionally, and locking them together means that they're going to change proportionally. But if I change one to 6 inches, it's going to change the other one proportionally. And so that's how you adjust the size of your model, your 3D model in 3D for Easel Pro. The other two options here are rotate, so I can choose a degree that I want to rotate my model, 90, 45, 135, and this allows me to rotate it. It doesn't look really great on this one specifically because it's just my model's bigger than my material if it's rotated in a specific way. But you can certainly rotate it, and that's entirely possible. The other one, or the other thing to note, is orientation. And essentially, it should default to top when you import, but you can essentially change the orientation of your model if you need to rotate it. It is a 3D model, so it exists in three-dimensional space. So being able to change that orientation is really specific, especially if you want a specific face of your model. I'm lucky in the sense that it's a top, but it could also be that it imports and it needs to be on the bottom. When you change the orientation, right now we can see that my hulls are pointing to, or my sails are pointing towards the top of my model. When I change that to bottom, we can see that now it's pointing in the other direction. So when it flips it so that essentially it's flipping it over and not, you would have to rotate it, say 180 degrees to get that to flip like vertically instead of horizontally. And that's a little bit more about how to adjust your model in Easel. Have a wonderful day.
To learn more, head over to easel.com.